Hey folks, Mark Levin here. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to talk about my go-to gold and silver company. Monetary Gold has over 25 years helping Americans understand physical gold and silver with an education-first, no-pressure approach and support for IRA-eligible options. Monetary Gold has a complimentary guide. It's free to help you understand precious metals. Call them right now, 877-NOW-GOLD, or visit marklovesgold.com and request the free guide. Make sure to ask for details. That's 877-NOW-GOLD, or visit marklovesgold.com. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax consultant. Now let's get to the show.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We're a nation at war with ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. We're a nation at war with ourselves. You red-blooded Americans, Mr. and Mrs. America, who are patriots, who love your country. You, me, we are on one side. Elected Democrats in Washington and their operatives, the Marxists, the Islamists, and the woke right neo-fascists are on another side. And it's getting very, very ugly out there. Why would any nation open its borders for a period of, 4 years, to anybody who wants to come in without proper vetting? What nation does that? Ours, under the Democrats. What nation leaves people in the country who shouldn't have been here in the first place, who are dangerous, and then tries to defund the very agency that's trying to track them down and remove them? The Democrats. What nations defund their Coast Guard, which is part of the Navy, certainly during wartime, defunds TSA, which is supposed to keep us safe on all overland transportation, including airlines and trains and bridges? The Democrat Party. What nation undermines itself when it's in the middle of a war against an enemy that wants to blow it off the face of the earth with nuclear weapons? The Democrat Party. You see, I pose it this way: what nation? And then I say the Democrat Party. Because the Democrat Party is dragging down the entire nation as it seeks to grab all power for one-party rule. That's all it cares about. I've told you this before, just like the Communist Party in other countries. The party comes first. The party controls the nation. You and I, we don't believe in committing suicide as a society. But the Democrat Party is doing everything possible to sabotage our country and threatening our very existence. Now, it should be obvious by now that among other targets, that Jews and Jewish facilities are being targeted. Whether it's a beatdown in San Jose at a restaurant out of the blue, whether it's chasing Hasidic Jews in New York City, or whether it's driving a vehicle into the headquarters of Chabad in Brooklyn, New York, whether it is shooting 2 staffers to the Israeli embassy, one of whom wasn't Jewish, one of whom clearly was, this young, beautiful couple, whether it was using a homemade flamethrower in an attempt to burn to death mostly elderly people who were protesting on behalf of Israel and against Hamas, one of whom died. When 7 out of every 10 hate crimes in this country is against a tiny minority of the population, Jews, we got a problem. My Christian friends out there understand this. They understand this is an attack that's based on religion and ethnicity. They understand, you understand, your link from the Old Testament to the New. And that the effort to destroy the United States of America is an effort to destroy everybody in the United States and America who doesn't abide by the Marxist Islamist ideology. That is what's taking place right now in front of your eyes. They've conquered most of Europe, and now their attention is on the United States of America. And just like the left-wing parties in Europe, the Democrat Party in the United States of America doesn't merely acquiesce to this, it embraces it because it sees it as its way to one-party rule and control and power. Michael Bouchard, the sheriff in West Bloomfield, and we're going to cover both of these shootings, in Michigan today. Cut 1, go.
Here's what we know so far. A car came to the facility, breached the facility by driving into it, was engaged by security. We believe there is one individual deceased in the vehicle. It's been complicated because there was some fire, to say the least, with that vehicle. We believe that individual is deceased. No kids, this is the important thing, no kids or no staff was injured whatsoever. Okay? So we have no victims other than one of the lead security people was hit by the car and was taken to the hospital for treatment. That individual should be okay. So far, that's our information to this point. We have agencies from all over. Obviously, ATF is here, FBI. More than likely, we'll be taking the lead on this based on some of the preliminary investigative information we have, but we're not going to go into that at this point. But we want to assure the community it doesn't appear to be anything active. We're still clearing the area. We're going to clear vehicles for any explosive devices, the building, etc. Unification of the families and the kids are in progress. We've accounted for everybody that we believe was in the building at the time. So we're on path to continue to maybe pivot to, is there anybody else involved, and the investigative side of what's happened.
So did you confirm that it was security that shot and killed the suspect here?
Well, we can't say what killed him at this point, but security did engage the suspect with gunfire.
Did the suspect have a weapon?
We can't get into a lot of that stuff, but he breached the building, drove down the hall, and he was engaged by security.
So do we know, did he ever fire shots, the suspect?
Preliminarily, we have some information, but nothing that we confirm, so we're not going to go into it.
Where did he breach the building in front?
He drove in through doors with a vehicle.
There was only one person in that vehicle?
That's what it appears at this point.
What do we know about this fire?
Something ignited in the vehicle. That's a work in progress. We're, through an abundance of caution, clearing the vehicle for IEDs or any explosives. We've got a significant number of bomb dogs on site, bomb techs on site, and all of that's going to be done to check the boxes. We have deployed resources all across the county, just in case, out of an abundance of caution, that there may be a secondary site, but we don't have any information at this time to believe that. So we want people to take a breath. No one was hurt. We're on top of it. The chief and his team got here fast. Everything that was supposed to happen happened. Security did their job, and then the responders did theirs.
The terrorist, that car was registered to a naturalized U.S. citizen from Lebanon. That's the terrorist. And we will dig up that name, Mr. Producer. Will you see? I can't find it right now. Will you see if you can... You haven't seen any name yet? Mm-hmm. It's very strange. We will spend the next 3 hours digging for it. I can assure you that. Authorities have now confirmed that a chemical agent was found inside the truck that rammed the Temple Israel in Michigan. Police sources confirmed to Fox's Channel 2 that the chemical agent, which was not identified, indicated that there was an explosive device inside the shooter's vehicle. The shooter, who died on the scene, threw an explosive projectile at the building before opening fire at the house of worship. So, as I understand it, he rams through with his truck, drives down what is a hallway. He is engaged by security. They fire shots. Apparently he fires shots. There is explosive chemical agent in the car. Either he released that agent, or as a result of the shooting, it blew up. The FBI and hundreds of law enforcement officers raced to Temple Israel in West Bloomfield. Smoke billowed from the building. Apart from the shooter, no further fatalities. And one of the security guards was apparently hurt, but not life-threatening. There's another report that says that the terrorist did, in fact, release an explosive projectile. And obviously they're looking very closely at that. And we're digging for the name. I know what I know, but we're digging for the name. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But I want to shift to another location where there was another attack by a naturalized citizen from Sri Lanka. And this gunman was ID'd with ISIS links. He was in prison. He was let out of prison early by some damnable left-wing judge, no doubt. Even though he was imprisoned for material assistance for terrorism, that's a pretty big deal. Here's Dominique Evans, FBI, Norfolk. Cut 19, go.
I'd like to acknowledge the students who showed extreme bravery and courage by containing the containing the shooter and stopping further loss of life. The FBI is now the lead investigative agency investigating this as an act of terrorism. The shooter has been identified as Mohammed Baylor Jallow. In 2016, Jallow was arrested and pled guilty for attempting to provide material support to ISIL, now known as ISIS. Jallow was sentenced to prison in October of 2017 and was released from prison in 2024. FBI Norfolk's Joint Terrorism Task Force and our evidence response team responded to the scene, and we will continue to have a physical presence here at the scene as we process the evidence. Additionally, we are conducting other investigative steps into Jallow and the specifics of the shooting. We have dedicated analytical and tactical support. We are aiding in this investigation throughout the entire time. We will continue to work alongside of our partners and those in the community to find answers. The FBI continues to ask for the public's help in providing any information that could lead us in resolving this investigation, and we remind the public that any detail, no matter how small, could be useful. A collection of those small details may help paint a complete picture.
Then cut 20.
I can tell you that we have confirmed reports that prior to him conducting this act of terrorism, he shouted, stated Allah Akbar, and he was formerly a subject of an FBI investigation in material supporting terrorism.
Allah Akbar, which means God is most great, and it's used by most Muslims during prayer as a general declaration of faith and thanksgiving. I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to address both of these. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Some major U.S. banks are publishing aggressive gold scenarios for 2026, some as high as about $6,300 an ounce. While nothing about the future is guaranteed, the market has already moved faster than many expected. Meanwhile, central banks have been accumulating gold, and some estimates show that gold holdings now exceeding U.S. Treasury holdings, signaling gold's long-term confidence. Monetary gold has over 25 years helping Americans understand physical gold and silver. With an education-first, no-pressure approach and support for IRA-eligible options, Monetary Gold has a complimentary guide to help you understand precious metals. Call them right now, 877-NOW-GOLD, or visit marklovesgold.com. Request the free guide. Make sure to ask for details. That's 877-NOW-GOLD, or visit marklovesgold.com. marklovesgold.com. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. All right, we're going to a live press conference by the sheriff in the Michigan synagogue attack.
I kind of want to give the 20,000-foot level, and then we're going to have a number of speakers, both from the police department here, Chief Young, and from the FBI. Obviously, a horrific thing happened tragically here in Oakland County again. So we've been through a number of these things. And the one thing that I want to make sure the local community is aware of first and foremost is this community works together hand in glove. This community takes care of each other. And we have been communicating regularly. I have been texting the chief, not just in West Bloomfield, but every place that's got significant houses of worship, Jewish facilities, synagogues, temples, you name it, over the past 2 weeks. Obviously, what happens around the world sometimes affects us, so we have to think about it and be prepared for it. So we've been talking. I texted actually the head of security from the temple 2 days ago and communicated some information to him. So the first thing the community should know is that we not just today work together, we work together all the time. Our state, our federal, and local partners. Number one. Number two, we train. In our world, preparation is important. We hope and pray it never happens, but that's not a strategy. Preparation is. So all of us have been training together for many years for active shooters or active assailants, mass casualty events, and tragically we've had way more than our share. So that is ongoing and is in place. The third thing is important to note, no children and no staff were hurt. So we know there's evil in the world, and we know they only have to get it.
We're going to take a hard break, Mr. Producer. We'll pick it up from here, okay, when we come back, so you won't miss any of this press conference, ladies and gentlemen. That facility, that synagogue, also has classrooms for little kids, and the little kids were, in fact, there. And thank the good Lord, nothing happened to them. More when we return. Some major U.S. banks are publishing aggressive gold scenarios for 2026, some as high as about $6,300 an ounce. While nothing about the future is guaranteed, the market has already moved faster than many expected. Meanwhile, central banks have been accumulating gold, and some estimates show that gold holdings now exceeding U.S. Treasury holdings, signaling gold's long-term confidence. Monetary Gold has over 25 years helping Americans understand physical gold and silver with an education-first, no-pressure approach and support for IRA-eligible options. Monetary Gold has a complimentary guide to help you understand precious metals. Call them right now, 877-NOW-GOLD, or visit marklovesgold.com. Request the free guide. Make sure to ask for details. That's 877-NOW-GOLD, or visit marklovesgold.com. marklovesgold.com. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Staff did an amazing
This is
job.
the ongoing press event law enforcement is having
Get some of the details on that, but they stopped the threat.
about the
No
attack on the
kids
synagogue in Michigan.
were hurt. Now, there were some injuries and things that had to be taken care of. One of the head of security was taken to the hospital. He got knocked down by the car when it breached the building, and we've had 30 law enforcement officers taken to the hospital for smoke inhalation. So a lot of our folks from my SWAT team and other agencies are still in treatment because that building became engulfed when the car, and we'll learn all of that through the investigation, why it became engulfed in flames, what was the ignition source, and I think the ATF is taking the origin of that source and origin of the fire. But in any event, what it did, it caused terrible, terrible smoke in that part of the building. And so when all of our people collectively went in that building to search out the threat, to remove innocent, a lot of them took in significant amount of smoke inhalation, and they're at the hospital being treated. So I also know you're going to have a lot of questions. A lot of those questions can't be answered at this point because it's super preliminary in the investigation. You know, all of us have thoughts of maybe why this happened, but we don't operate in a world where we can presume something. We have to determine it through investigation and specificity. And that is a work that's in progress as we speak. All of us will work seamlessly together to get the answers, and then it will be called what it is. Obviously, it's a hateful, terrible thing, right? But what drove this person into action, that has to be determined by the investigation. We can presume, but we have to find those facts, and that's going to happen over the next days in time. So we won't be able to get into a lot of the evidentiary questions, but we're available to make sure the community understands that we are still on a very heightened platform. And the most important thing that I would tell the community, don't be afraid to call us. If we're not your own local police department, call your local police department. We'd rather respond to 100 nothings than miss one real deal. The only way we prevent something like this is to get a call. Something's off with my son, my brother, my boyfriend, whatever the case. I saw something posted. That's the only way we interdict, because people are more likely to see or hear something before us. So if you see or hear something, you have to communicate that. And then we can intervene and hopefully prevent. But if we can't prevent, then we respond and mitigate. That's what happened today. And I think based on the early information, it happened flawlessly. So with that, I'll kick it over to my friend Chief Young from West Bloomfield Police Department.
Thank you, Sheriff. My name is Dale Young. I'm the police chief of West Bloomfield. I want to share with you how we got to where we are today. So today we received a 911 call which came in around 12:19 p.m. It was about an active shooter situation at Temple Israel where the individual drove into the building. West Bloomfield officers arrived on scene under 5 minutes. Temple security officers engaged the individual and neutralized the threat. Our officers, combined with area agencies, cleared the building multiple times and safely and successfully evacuated all children and staff. This is an active crime scene, and we are examining every angle related to this situation. I will now turn this over to the FBI for further comment.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Runyon, last name Runyan, and I'm a special agent in charge of the FBI Detroit Field Office. This is a deeply disturbing and tragic incident, and our deepest sympathies are with the victims, their family, and the entire Jewish community. The FBI is here working with our state, local, and federal partners to investigate this incident, and I can confirm that we are leading the investigation right now as a targeted act of violence against the Jewish community. As my partners have said, this is an active and ongoing investigation with an active crime scene, and I ask for your patience as we process this evidence and pursue every lead that has come to us and that we have developed thus far. And what I can share is this. There was one subject involved in this incident who is now deceased. And as my partners have said, we've had no victim fatalities. We will not be able to provide additional information at this time on the subject or his motive, as our goal is to protect the integrity of this investigation and to ensure that we give you accurate and timely information as soon as we can. The FBI was notified of active shooter at Temple Israel at approximately 12:45. We immediately activated and deployed all of our crisis response resources, which includes our SWAT team, our crisis negotiation team, our evidence response team, our special agent bomb techs, our weapons of mass destruction team, our cellular analysis survey team, and our victim services, as well as more than 100 agents and analysts to ensure that we are actively mitigating and responding to the active threat, but also pursuing diligently and methodically every lead that we have. My ask to the public is a few things. I know everyone wants information now, but I ask that you be patient as we are still processing this scene and still pursuing everything that we can and that has come to us today. Second, we've activated a digital media tip line for any witnesses who has photos or videos of the incident today. They can upload those at www.fbi.gov/West Bloomfield attack, all one word. But the public can also report through our call line at 1-800-CALL-FBI if you have any information about this incident and or any other suspicious activity that you see around in your community, your life, your places of worship, your schools. As the sheriff said, we all need to remain vigilant, and it takes the whole community to ensure that.
This is Mark Levin. We're carrying the press conference.
I also understand that congregants may have some personal effects
where the synagogue was attacked.
And as soon as we have a reunification site to get those effects to the affected victims, we will be sure and release that as soon as possible. I want to thank our partners and the first responders and the security personnel at Temple Israel who did an excellent job of mitigating this.
I think that's what we'll take right now. We don't have any further press conference, at least not right now, regarding the Old Dominion University attack by an Islamist, a terror attack. It appears that one individual was killed, perhaps the instructor. The gunman who killed one person and wounded two others there at Old Dominion University had previously been imprisoned for trying to support ISIS. Law enforcement sources identified the gunman in the Old Dominion University shooting as Mohammed Baylor Jalloh, a 36-year-old former Virginia National Guardsman who pleaded guilty in October 2016 to attempting to provide material support to the terror group ISIS. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison and was released early December 2024, according to the FBI. Jalloh also was killed. The shooter walked into a class at Constant Hall, which is part of the College of Business at Old Dominion, and asked if it was an ROTC class, a law enforcement source told CBS. When someone responded that it was, the shooter opened fire, fatally injuring the class instructor, who was a retired Army officer. Terrible. The shooting's being investigated as a terror-related attack. At his 2017 sentencing, Jalloh claimed he deeply regretted his actions and was disgusted with ISIS. He apologized to the American military and to the people of the United States, according to the transcript. Two shooting victims were taken to a Norfolk hospital, and another victim took themselves to a hospital in Virginia Beach, Old Dominion Police Chief Garrett Shelton said during a news conference. He didn't identify the victim who died, but it was the instructor. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll said on social media that two of the victims were Army personnel. FBI Director Kash Patel credited students and law enforcement with preventing the shooting from becoming a bigger tragedy. He said the shooter is now deceased thanks to a group of brave students who stepped in and subdued him, actions that undoubtedly saved lives, along with the quick response of law enforcement. And the shooting happened hours before a Michigan synagogue was attacked. Norfolk Police Chief Mark Talbot told reporters there wasn't an ongoing threat to the city on the Virginia coast. Now, we have a hero ROTC cadet, as reported by the New York Post. A heroic ROTC student fatally stabbed the crazed ISIS-linked gunman who opened fire inside an Old Dominion University classroom, preventing further carnage. Shooter Mohammed Baylor Jola, 36, gunned down an instructor before the unidentified cadet jumped into action, and apparently there were several of them, to put an end to the suspect terrorist attack on the Virginia college campus. And they talk about how he was previously convicted. When someone told him it was a trail of blood, he began his trail of bloodshed, which the FBI is investigating as an act of terrorism. Not sure what that means. Now, within an hour of the shooting, school officials said there was no longer a threat to the staff. And the instructor, retired military, very, very sad, really. Terrible. So this is an Islamist who had ties in the past to at least intentions to do what ISIS had sought to do, and served jail time, got out early. We'd like to know what judge did that. And then about a year and a half later, here he is. Now, as I read other accounts of this, the ROTC cadet had a knife and killed him with a knife. We'll get more information. We'll know the accuracy or not of that. But this is an Islamist from Sri Lanka, a naturalized citizen. I don't understand why he wasn't denaturalized and removed from the country once he served his sentence, and he should have served all of it, obviously. All of it, obviously. In the synagogue, Temple Israel, in West Bloomfield, as I understand it, the largest Reformed synagogue, they say, in the nation, the security guard there engaged the driver with his gun and was also heroic in what he did. Now, I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I'm going to get into this more deeply. We're going to have to take a short break, because that's what we do. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Some major U.S. banks are publishing aggressive gold scenarios for 2026, some as high as about $6,300 an ounce. While nothing about the future is guaranteed, the market has already moved faster than many expected. Meanwhile, central banks have been accumulating gold, and some estimates show that gold holdings now exceeding U.S. Treasury holdings, signaling gold's long-term confidence. Monetary gold has over 25 years helping Americans understand physical gold and silver. With an education-first, no-pressure approach and support for IRA-eligible options, Monetary Gold has a complimentary guide to help you understand precious metals. Call them right now, 877-NOW-GOLD, or visit marklovesgold.com. Request the free guide. Make sure to ask for details. That's 877-NOW-GOLD, or visit marklovesgold.com. marklovesgold.com. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. All right. Let's cut to the chase here, America. Number one, our government has let people into this country who seek to destroy us. Open borders, no proper vetting. From parts of the world where there are civil wars, where terrorism reigns king, where regimes are funding terrorism, including in our own country. It's our government as a whole, but the Democrat Party in specific. There's simply no getting around it. There are open borders, no deportation ideology. because they want power and they want one-party rule. And they'll do anything for it. They'll shut down the Coast Guard if they can. They'll shut down the TSA, both of which are supposed to protect us, particularly when we're at war, particularly in heightened situations like this. All their lies and propaganda, their agitprop aside. I'm cutting to the chase. That's number one. Number two, these phony influencers who are trying to appeal to the enemy overseas, who embrace the enemy overseas, who trash Jews and trash Christians, who are spreading anti-Semitism, particularly among younger people, and particularly among people who are already off their rocker, who are targeting young Christians, among others. They're giving aid and comfort to the enemy during the course of this war, who are traitors. They are stoking violence against Jews in this country, as is the Democrat Party and big parts of the Democrat Party. Dearborn, Michigan. Dearborn, Michigan. That's where the car, to the person they know, it's where he drove it, from Dearborn, Michigan. I played you clips of the mayor there. I've played you clips of imams from there. The leadership in that city, at least the people I hear, are pushing violence. Flat-out violence. And that's not the only place. You have the Marxists, the Islamists, and the woke Reich, R-E-I-C-H, neo-Nazis, united in their effort to destroy this country, to destroy the tolerance, the values that we all hold. And I told you this thing goes beyond Jews. What took place in that ROTC classroom had nothing to do with Jews. Had to do with America. The attack on the synagogue obviously had everything to do with Jews. Everything. There's simply no ignoring it. There's no pretending otherwise. Since 2023, the anti-Semitism or Jew hatred, people are tired. I'm tired of hearing anti-Semitism. Okay, violence against Jews in this country is up the violence, they hate, is focused on Jews, 70% of it. 70% of it. Tiny population. Around the world, it's just unspeakable what's taking place. And this is fueled by the Islamists. It's fueled by the woke right, neo-fascists. And it is fueled by the labor parties, the liberal parties, the Democrat Party that embrace these elements and pretend they don't, but they do, and bring them into the civilized society with their ideologies, with their hate, with their cultures, who have no intention of assimilating. None. The level of hate, we haven't seen this in my lifetime, and I want to continue with this when I return. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. We have created the situation we're confronting. Not you and me, of course, but elements of the ruling class elitists. They've created this situation. In both these instances, we're talking about naturalized citizens. That is, theoretically, they were vetted and demonstrated to be qualified to show allegiance to the United States and to assimilate into our country. Now, you know damn well that never happened, and we have tens of thousands of people like that in our country now. We have federal judges without any authority who are now stepping in and preventing the deportation of some of the worst. We have a Democrat Party that looks for any way possible to prevent the apprehension, detention, and removal of people who are here illegally. So vigorous are they in this, so demanding are they that they remain and then become citizens and have a right to vote, and then their children, that they have defunded during a time of war the Coast Guard. They've defunded TSA. You know, you got hours and hours of waits now at these airports, and these poor people, these TSA people, they're not wealthy. Far from it. And the ones who are working there aren't even getting paid. They're not getting paid anything. Just so you know. I don't know what's happening to their health care and all the rest of it. There they are every day. They're heroic, if you ask me, because it's their job to make sure our planes don't blow up after 9/11. Same with customs. And the Democrats are at war with ICE. That's including customs. And they are responsible for bringing millions of these people into our country. As a massive violation of federal immigration law. For their own political benefit. For their own political benefit. Now they refuse to have voter ID. I mean, they're exposing themselves. Now, I've spent, what is this now, March? I've spent 10 months, longer than that, but 10 months focused on exposing Tucker Carlson, on exposing Steve Bannon, on exposing Megyn Kelly, and others. 10 months. I've taken more crap than you can imagine. Mark, you might want to pipe it down. Mark, some of the sponsors don't like this. Mark, some of the PDs don't like this. You think I enjoy it? They don't get threats. I get threats. And I'm not telling you this. I'm not crying on your shoulder. I'm explaining how crucial this is to this nation, let alone the conservative movement and the Constitution. When we have people, day in and day out, reaching millions of young people, trashing our country, trashing our military, trashing our great faiths that created this nation, and now turning on the president. Somebody's got to speak up. More people are, and I want to thank them. But not enough. Not enough of the politicians, not enough of the think tanks, not enough. I said there's sort of a civil war going on in this country. And there is. Those of us who love this country, those of us who've had ancestors build this country, those who are newly here and came here because they want to contribute to the country and have allegiance to the country and want to assimilate into our culture, and then those who were brought here and come here to destroy our country, who demand that we accommodate them, who demand that we surrender our beliefs, our faiths, our country, our way of life to them, whether they be the Marxists or the Islamists. Then we have the Nazi types, the 1930s types, who seek to exploit it all as well. They reject constitutionalism and republicanism. They reject the consent of the governed. They wish to impose their own views on the rest of us. They call themselves nationalists. Well, Hitler called himself a nationalist too. We're not nationalists. We believe in Americanism, federalism, constitutionalism. That's what we believe in. Some people have tried to pervert this whole notion of nationalism into patriotism. It's not patriotism. It's a centralized, iron-fisted police state. We're about the civil society. We're about the sovereignty of the individual. We're about the sovereignty of the United States. Americanism. But here we are today. The forces that have conquered Europe, and yes, Europe is conquered. Europe is done. The left-wing parties embraced and promoted massive immigration. The Islamist entities took maximum advantage of it and exploited it. And now the neo-fascist, neo-Nazi movements in Europe and in our country, they exploit it too. They exploit it too. You have Jews and Jewish institutions that are literally under attack. They can't wear kippahs or yarmulkes, the Star of David, the garb of Hasidic Jews, without fearing for their lives. That's the truth. You have Christian churches, particularly those of the evangelical Christians, that are threatened all the time. I happen to know that from a number of pastors. When they stand up for the notion of supporting our ally, Israel, and when they argue that Scripture compels the Judeo-Christian belief system as united, they're coming under attack because these are the things that founded our nation, and these are the things that holds our nation together, ladies and gentlemen. There's a reason why neo-fascists are attracted to Putin in Russia, why they're attracted to Qatar and Saudi Arabia, why, quite frankly, they're attracted to the enemy in Iran. There's a reason for that. And so it's basically you and me, Mr. and Mrs. America. It's us. But there are tens of millions of us. Tens of millions of us who don't believe as the Marxists believe, who don't believe as the Islamists believe, who don't believe as the neo-fascists believe. Eyal Yacobi on X points to a Jewish onliner finds that much of the supposed American backlash to Operation Epic Fury on X, on Twitter, is actually driven by foreign accounts. 7 out of the 10 accounts generating the most interactions about Iran were based outside the United States, and every one of them was negative towards the operation. Among the 100 most viral posts, 60 came from foreign accounts and generated over 155 million views, far more than the U.S.-based posts. Now, this is a movement by China, Russia, by the radicals in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in parts of the Middle East and so forth. This is their propaganda. They're using the social sites. They're using so-called influencers who have no influence. They're using podcasters. While every pro-operation post, every one came from an American account. So 70% of the negatives came from foreign accounts. Every pro comes from American accounts. In other words, he says, much of the so-called consensus online is being shaped by foreign amplification. By foreign amplification. So what looks like, writes Eaton Fishberger, like massive American backlash to Operation Epic Fury on X is largely a foreign pile-on. A foreign pile-on. The analysis found that from February 28 to March 7, posts containing the word Iran generated 98 million posts, 696.4 million interactions, and 1.5 trillion potential views. 7 of the 10 accounts generating the most interactions were based outside the United States, and every single one of them was negative toward the operation. Now, the pattern held at the individual post level, too. 7 of the 10 most viral posts were authored by foreign accounts, and all 7 opposed Epic Fury. In a sample of 100 highly viral posts containing the word Iran, with more than 10,000 shares, the 60 foreign origin posts generated about 155.6 million views versus 93.4 million for the 40 U.S.-based posts. That is a reach gap of more than 62 million views on those posts alone. Of the 100 massively viral posts, 90 were hostile to Epic Fury. And notably, every single one of the 10 pro-operation posts came from American posts. In other words, a lot of what users are seeing as supposed consensus is actually being disproportionately shaped by foreign accounts, amplifying anti-U.S. narratives. And now let me go on, because this has a bigger impact than that. And I argued to you, I think it was the other day, 2 days ago, that what you are seeing with a number of these accounts, with rather a number of these podcasters, what you are seeing is that their numbers are also generated largely by foreign accounts, by foreigners who hate America, who hate Christians, who hate Jews, who love Qatar, who love Saudi Arabia, who love Putin, who love Iran. These are the people that, in my view, are mostly generating the numbers for the Tucker Carlsons, for the Bannons, for the Kellys, and all the rest of them, as I pointed out several days ago. And I think this proves it. But politicians are getting the wrong message. In the White House, on Capitol Hill, Republicans, that somehow these so-called podcasters are influencers. They're influencers with the enemy overseas who hate our country, hate our Judeo-Christian belief system. They're influencers with them, but not with America. But, of course, the media picked this up and run with it because they hate Trump, and they're also undermining you and me. And by the way, I would like one individual Mediaite to understand, patriotic people on the right are taking on Tucker and company. I've been doing it for a long time, and I've been taking a lot of pushback on this. But they don't listen to radio, a lot of these guys. They just don't. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
It's time for a little spring cleaning, and I know where to start. Go drag your old, dated wireless contract out of the closet and beat it with a broom. Then freshen things up by switching to Pure Talk, my wireless company that gives you unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, just $25 a month, with no contract, no cancellation fees, and no overseas customer service if you ever need help. I'm guessing you're going to like them as much as my listener Paul from Greer, South Carolina. He says, I finally listened to Mark Levin's advice and switched from Verizon. I'm getting the very same service for less than half of what I was paying Verizon. You know, I long wondered if these much lower services could provide the same level of service as the big boys. Now I know that Pure Talk certainly can. Thank you, Paul. Now it's time for you folks to make the switch, too. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save 50% off your first month. That's puretalk.com/Levin, and switch to a wireless company that shares your values. Pure Talk, America's wireless company. You know, the media are so stupid. Iran activating sleeper cells. Iran doesn't have to activate sleeper cells. The Islamists know what to do. They're brainwashed to do it. They know what to do. They don't need to be activated. They're poised. They're poised to act. It's not like somebody puts out the call and they say, all right, now we can act. It wasn't activated when those two young people were murdered who had worked at the Israeli synagogue, embassy. It wasn't activated when that guy made the homemade flamethrower and killed one old lady and burned others. And I can go down the list. They don't need to be activated. And there's more to come. As we've discussed for years, there's more to come. And don't think you're safe. Maybe you say, well, at least I'm not Jewish. Maybe they won't target me. No. Is that what happened on 9/11? Of course not. One other thing. Isn't it obvious right now that the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran, they're trying to block the Strait of Hormuz for the purpose of preventing oil to come out in order to get the world to put pressure on President Trump? The media already working on behalf of the enemy, talking about the price of oil has gone up. They didn't give a damn, as I've said many times now this week, about the price of oil or gasoline going up. When it came to pushing their climate change religion, they don't complain about the price of oil and gasoline in California, where that nut job just drove it through the roof. We're never going to get anywhere near the price that it is in California and some of these other states. So once again, the foreign actors, and that doesn't just include Islamist states, that includes Europe, China, they're all going to put pressure on, you see. Pressure on. Because they want their oil, the price of oil. And the Iranian regime has that figured out. And they see what's going on in America with the propagandists dressed up as journalists. Even some of our friends are going on about the price of gasoline, the price of oil. There's been more talk about the price of gasoline than there ever was when it skyrocketed under Biden. Why? Why? Because they supported the religion of climate change and they imposed what I call this peace mission to get rid of this homicidal, genocidal regime. I'll be right back. It's time for a little spring cleaning, and I know where to start. Go drag your old, dated wireless contract out of the closet and beat it with a broom. Then freshen things up by switching to Pure Talk, my wireless company that gives you unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, just $25 a month, with no contract, no cancellation fees, and no overseas customer service if you ever need help. I'm guessing you're going to like them as much as my listener Paul from Greer, South Carolina. He says, I finally listened to Mark Levin's advice and switched from Verizon. I'm getting the very same service for less than half of what I was paying Verizon. You know, I long wondered if these much lower services could provide the same level of service as the big boys. Now I know that Pure Talk certainly can. Thank you, Paul. Now it's time for you folks to make the switch, too. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save 50% off your first month. That's puretalk.com/Levin, and switch to a wireless company that shares your values. Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
Blasting conservative fire. The Mark Levin Show. Call in now at 877-381-3811.
You know, in the world of talk radio, it's a massive format. Massive. Now, a lot of younger people aren't that familiar with it because they're all iPhone-oriented. Even though, of course, you can hear, like my show, that is heard on a podcast format as well, because we use all such formats. But I love it when people you've never heard of, people who don't listen to radio much, don't watch TV much, but kind of live on the internet, they make declarations about who's great, who isn't great, who's doing what, who isn't doing what. It's bizarre, quite frankly. Bizarre. And so they're missing a lot when they don't listen to talk radio, conservative talk radio, including, or especially this program. They're missing a lot. Not just because of me, but because of you. They ignore you. And yet, you're the majority of the voting population. You're the majority of the tax-paying population. You're the majority that makes this country work. It's just true. And what's interesting is, Mr. Producer's been to a number of book signings of mine and so forth, but I get it all the time. People come up to me and they'll say things like, I first started listening to you when I was in the car when my mother would take me to school or my father would take me to football practice. You've heard a lot of that, haven't you, Mr. Producer? There's really no way to measure that, but it's true. So when you have individuals who work for little websites and live in a little bubble and kind of hang on the internet most of their life and podcasting most of their life, and they go, I declare so-and-so is this and so-and-so is that. They don't even have a universal view of what's taking place. It's almost buffoonish. Now I see Megyn Kelly. By the way, Megyn likes strapless dresses. Have you noticed that? Yeah. No. People are watching her because of her brains, you see. Especially all these foreign accounts. They're really working those foreign accounts hard. Boy, I'll tell you. When 91% of MAGA supports the president and his handling of this war, and 0% of the woke right, R-E-I-C-H, 0% of them support it, or him, you can see that's a little bit of a gap. Now, the media want you to believe there's a division in MAGA. When 91% support the president and the war effort, no, there's not a division in MAGA. No, these aren't conservatives. No, these aren't Republicans. No, these aren't constitutionalists. These are freaks, frauds, and phonies. These are Jew haters and Christian trashers. They keep interviewing each other. But Megyn, wow, she's got more positions than, I used to say this about Tucker Carlson, but it's clear she's got more positions than a happy hooker. But not anymore. She's now settled on a position. America-hating, Jew-hating, Christian trashing, low IQ moron. Now, why do I say this? Well, we don't have 10 hours, but there she is on her podcast saying that she made Ben Shapiro. She made Ben Shapiro because Ben would come on her programs. First of all, she got no ratings on NBC. NBC even tried her out up against 60 Minutes. It was so awful, they canceled her. And they kicked her ass to the curb, and they had to settle with her. And they did for millions because they wanted to get rid of her. She's a disgruntled former employee from everywhere she's ever worked. But now she's found her niche with Candace Owens, bigot. Tucker Carlson, bigot. Steve Bannon, bigot. Anti-Semites, Christian bashers, all of whom stabbed Trump in the back, all of them who've tried to use Trump and MAGA. Ask yourself, what has Megyn Kelly ever done with her life? She was a lawyer for about 2 minutes, and she's been in media. That's it. And she's a media concoction. She's a fabrication. What else has she ever done? Nothing. Nothing. And yet she's an expert in everything. Especially trashing real conservatives. She didn't make Ben Shapiro. She didn't make anything. She didn't even make herself. The fact that she's found a niche with foreign accounts, with bigots, anti-Semites, Christian bashers, people trashing MAGA, trashing the President of the United States, the fact that she's part of the 0% and all of you are part of the 91% should tell you plenty. She's a head case. She's a psycho. Tucker Carlson got very upset today. He always is upset, you know. He's always wetting himself about something. Trashing Laura Loomer. Turns out Laura Loomer is one of the best researchers on the face of the planet. Especially when it comes to Catarlson and the stupid brother, Buckley. Boy, is that demeaning Bill Buckley's name. But in any event, writes this long screed trashing her, that she's against white people and Christians and... What a freak, fraud, phony that guy is. I actually believe that he believes in what he says, even if it's different one day to the next. But there is a constant. He hates America. He hates America's founding. He hates the Judeo-Christian value system. He hates the Enlightenment. He hates Trump. Yeah, when those texts came public, that was quite clear. Trump's onto him now. And he hates you. If you are a patriotic American, he hates you. He embraces Sharia law and Islam. He's told you, look, you go over to Qatar, they have these Lamborghinis, and they don't have to lock the doors over there. Yeah, that's a good test for a moron. I guess he missed the over 1 million indentured servants in a country of 330,000 people. Citizens. And then, of course, clips of his podcast are played by the enemy. The Iranian mass-murdering Nazi regime. They love his clips. They love his clips in Qatar. But Qatar's not so hot on him right now. They love his clips in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is not so hot on him right now. Putin's hot on him, and Putin mocked him. After he interviewed Putin, Putin said, that's it. Basically, he said, you ask me any tough questions. That's what he was inferring. You're a kiss ass. That's what he is. Now, what do these people do other than interview each other? I'm just curious. Do you actually learn anything from them? They interview each other, and they interview as guests the most loathsome, toxic, moronic, American-hating, Churchill-hating, Reagan-hating, Trump-hating, Jew-hating, Christian-bashing snakes on the face of the earth. And they think that's cool. Well, I'm just asking questions. You know, you're one of the smartest historians. I don't understand. You're one of our great historians. This guy Cooper's not even a historian. Oh, no, he's one of the greatest historians. You're just too close to Netanyahu to understand what we're saying over here in Maine, in our little hovel. Well, so this goes on. in the podcasting world, in the internet world. And then you have a site like Mediaite that's sort of tracking it all. Look at this one's fighting this one, and this one's fighting. Sometimes I feel like it's third grade over there. It's very toxic. It is a cesspool. And I and a handful of others are trying to bring some actual intelligent substance to it. Because in many ways it's dragging down the country. These people are dragging down the country. These are life's losers who are making a ton of money. You got a comedian. I forget his last name, Dean something or other. I forget his last name. And he's out there. He's not funny. He's not even a lounge act for some casino or some topless club or whatever. And he's a genius, you see, when it comes to the history of the Middle East. The Jews and Netanyahu and Israel and the Jews. And so he's interviewed. They love him. Oh, yeah, look at it. He's not a comedian. This guy, he knows his stuff. Then you got Bannon. Bannon's a fraud. He's confessed a fraud. He has his you-know-what up Epstein's you-know-what. Like 2,000 emails between the two guys, or texts. He's got these videotapes he's hiding. Year ago, he was a Christian Zionist. Now he hates Israel. Got to defeat them, and their protectorate, because he's figured out the money is in foreign accounts for the podcasters. The money's in foreign accounts. None of these guys could make it on talk radio. None of these people could make it on TV. None of them. None of them. And they leak incessantly to the liberal media. Incessantly. Megyn Kelly doesn't have 1/1000th the brain power of Ben Shapiro. In fact, she doesn't have 1/1000th of the brain power of the stupidest person on the face of the earth. But she likes to show her shoulders. Sick and getting sicker, as the great Bob Grant used to say. You know, I hate to devolve into these things sometimes, but sometimes it's very important. You got to set the record straight. You really do. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
It's time for a little spring cleaning, and I know where to start. Go drag your old, dated wireless contract out of the closet and beat it with a broom. Then freshen things up by switching to Pure Talk, my wireless company that gives you unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, just $25 a month, with no contract, no cancellation fees, and no overseas customer service if you ever need help. I'm guessing you're going to like them as much as my listener Paul from Greer, South Carolina. He says, I finally listened to Mark Levin's advice and switched from Verizon. I'm getting the very same service for less than half of what I was paying Verizon. You know, I long wondered if these much lower services could provide the same level of service as the big boys. Now I know that Pure Talk certainly can. Thank you, Paul. Now it's time for you folks to make the switch, too. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save 50% off your first month. That's puretalk.com/Levin, and switch to a wireless company that shares your values. Pure Talk, America's wireless company. All right. Let's see what my buddy has to say here. Bear with me 1 minute. Okay. Let's see. Sheriff Mike Bouchard in Michigan, the sheriff who was very well spoken today, said, if you think you can target the Jewish community in this county or anywhere else in this state, you're wrong. We're not only going to stand in front of them to protect them, we're coming for you. I cannot thank the Christian community enough. I cannot. Thank you so much, and God bless you so much. And I feel the same way about you. I would stand in front for you as well. We and others are in this together. We either stand or we fall together. That's what's going on here. We stand or we fall together. While Tucker Carlson may try to make distinctions between and among verses in our Bible, the enemy does not. Does not. We'll be right back for the Power Hour.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. I'm glad to see others now as well, encouraging the president to stay the course. I can't think of anything that would be more disastrous if he didn't, and I feel quite comfortable that he will. But people are whispering in his ear, some of them in the White House, I'm sure, some of them on Capitol Hill. Mostly the isolationists, or the neo-isolationists, if you will. Okay, get it over with, get it over with. These are stupid people. Get it over with. Stupid people. What's this, day 10 or 11, Mr. Producer? And, of course, they're undermining the president. They're undermining the entire effort here. Just like the left. No better. There's a job to be done here, and it will be done. And our military can do it. Our intelligence services can do it. Our allies, the Israelis and their intelligence services, they can do it with two of the greatest leaders in history, in President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. I mean, this isn't all being done so we can tuck our tails and run and leave the regime, and then they're at it again with their nuclear weapons, the ICBMs, the terrorism, and all the rest. Can you imagine? And yet people are advising the president to do this. But a lot of patriots are advising the president to stay the course. From what I'm hearing today, in his public statements and so forth, that's his plan. Now, the Democrats are there to exploit everything and anything. They hate you, Mr. and Mrs. America. They love illegal aliens. You know the Constitution. They don't. Many of them barely speak English. But really, my problem isn't with them. It's with their mentors, the Democrat Party, that are doing this to this country. Somebody by the name of Ramin Fatehi, Raminfateh. He's the Norfolk Commonwealth's attorney. The Norfolk, Virginia Commonwealth's attorney. And he was at a press conference today respecting the murder of the instructor at Old Dominion University, and, of course, the wounding of two others, and the brave ROTC students, one in particular who had a knife, put an end to that. What does Ramin Fatehi, a.k.a. Yabba Dabba Do, have to say about this? Cut 3, go.
A national sickness. We live in a country where people care more about guns than they care about 6-year-old children. They care more about guns than they care about synagogue worshipers. And they care more about guns than they do about college students. What that means is that it does not matter how hard President Hemphill works, how hard the chiefs work, somebody will be a victim eventually. It is a matter of time. And until there is the political will to break the spell of the cult of gun absolutism, you will see more incidents like this.
Okay, thank you. Gun absolutism. That's the problem. Gun absolutism. Not the people who have the guns, not the people who pull the triggers, not the people who are let into the country and are naturalized. It's gun absolutism. That's interesting. So now the Second Amendment is gun absolutism. I guess the First Amendment is speech absolutism. And due process is due process absolutism. The way the Marxists talk, it's just incredible. But this guy's trying to distract from the fact that the individual who struck at Dominion, the individual who killed the instructor and wounded 2 others, but then was subdued and killed himself by heroes, ROTC heroes, that he was an Islamist who served a jail sentence because he was trying to provide material support for terrorism against you and me, Mr. and Mrs. America. And the individual is a naturalized citizen from Sri Lanka. You see, this prosecutor, Yabba Dabba, he doesn't want to focus on any of that. It's the gun. It's the gun. My advice to patriotic Americans is always be in a position to protect and defend yourself. Lawfully, legally. But you have to be in a position to defend yourself now. You got prosecutors like this in Norfolk, Virginia. Is he going to prosecute, or would he have prosecuted the gun? We don't prosecute guns. They're inanimate objects. Guns don't do anything unless somebody picks them up and does something with them. Guns can be used for good, and guns can be used for bad. Now, if you import bad people, or if they're bad people who are born in this country, who are not imported, but they're just bad, they're the ones who need to be punished. Them. They're the ones that need to be punished. The gun's not punished. Other gun owners shouldn't be punished, but you know this already. But I wanted you to hear it from the Norfolk, Virginia Commonwealth's attorney, what his focus is, and I doubt it's very safe there. Here's the President of the United States. Let's see here, where he's commenting on this shooting. Which one is that, Mr. Producer? Near the end or something here? Okay. Well, anyway, the President of the United States made a very wonderful statement. We don't have it, but he did. You can check it up yourself. Check on it yourself about what took place. And I can tell you both personally, and he has said it publicly, that he's appalled at all of this. He shakes his head. He can't believe it's taking place, and it is. And it is. Isn't it interesting, Mr. Producer? There's some public officials we haven't heard from today. Am I right about that? Which public officials in high office have we not heard from today? Does anybody know? I could be dead wrong about that, by the way. Could be dead wrong. But there's some public officials we haven't heard from today. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm not pointing out anyone in particular. You folks are good at doing research, checking out stuff. Which public officials have we not heard from today? Which Republican officials have we not heard from today? I'm just curious. I'm not picking on anyone. Nobody should read anything into what I'm saying. I'm just curious, which ones haven't we heard from today? I mean, it's all over the news. You've heard about it. We've heard from the President of the United States. We've heard from some other people, some lesser lights. Now, back to Iran. You got this guy, Chris Coons, who is a senator from Delaware, basically part of the Biden machine. And, of course, he's dumb as a doorknob, which is why they promote him. And there he is on the Constipated News Network. That also has a lot of explaining to do, but since they don't have many viewers, I guess there's not a lot to explain too. But I want you to listen to his plan. Listen to his plan. Cut 8, go.
Right now, yes, I would be saying to our allies in the region, we need to sit down at the table with the Iranian regime and get a ceasefire and move towards a new nuclear deal that will give us real visibility into their program and get them to stop their program. So far, what President Trump has accomplished is there's a new supreme leader of Iran who's likely harder line, younger, healthier, angrier, and more likely.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's nobody who's more hardline than the prior Islamo-Nazi leader was. Okay, this is just their propaganda, number one. Number two, I'm reading everywhere that the guy's in a coma and he's lost one or both of his legs. That's why you're not seeing him in public. But it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is, Chris Coons, the senator from Delaware, is a very sick man. So here we are, winning the war. You got to keep at it. It's day 11 or 12. And he says, let us sue for peace. Let's get a deal with the same regime. Who cares if they killed 50,000 of their own people? Who cares? We need a really verifiable agreement. Meaning apparently the Obama deal really wasn't verifiable. And after bombing them in June, they still went back at producing more nuclear material, weapons-grade material. They tell us that they have enough. They have enough to build 10 nuclear weapons in 11 days. And this jackass says we should go back to the table and negotiate with them in a really verifiable agreement. Now, this guy lives in a real bubble. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Now for something completely different. I love that line. James Rosen is a great journalist. He's a great writer, and he's doing a great favor to we the people. He has really dug in on one of the greatest thinkers and scholars, really in American history, in my view, Antonin Scalia. And his first great book was Scalia, the Supreme Court, Rise to Greatness, 1936 to 1986. That was published a couple of years ago. And he's got a brand new book out. It's another volume, Scalia, Supreme Court Years 1986 to 2001. And it's a fantastic book, and you can get it on Amazon.com, any retail store that's worth its weight in books. How are you, Mr. Rosen?
I am blessed to be with you. Thank you so much, Mark.
It's my great honor. Look, I went through this book. It really is fantastic. And you make the point that Scalia, and by the way, the books are very understandable. They're in plain English, not legalese. And you make the case Scalia was not only a legal genius, he was bigger than that. Explain what you mean by that.
So Antonin Scalia was not just one of the most important Supreme Court justices of recent times. In my view, he's one of the most important Americans of the last 100 years. And the reason is because he changed the way the law in this country is drafted, debated, and decided by the courts. And in turn, that touches every facet of life for every American alive today. When Scalia came to the federal bench in 1982, he served on the Court of Appeals, one rung below the Supreme Court. He was appointed by President Reagan, and then in 86, President Reagan elevated him to the Supreme Court. There prevailed in those years a notion in American law that was a liberal notion. It was called the living Constitution. This is the idea that the Constitution, its meaning, should expand like a living, breathing organism to account for phenomena that the Founding Fathers could never have envisioned, such as the internet or nuclear weapons. And that latter-day judges should not be bound by the text of what the Constitution says or any given law enacted since then, but that they should have the right to interpret the Constitution or any law. And that's the central business of judges. That's what they do for a living. They interpret the law and tell us what it means. That they should have the latitude to read broader meanings into the language than was actually there, and so that they could account for these modern phenomena. And the living constitutionalist judge was not bound by the text. In fact, they tended to relegate the text to secondary consideration. Instead, to breathe these wider, broader meanings into the text, they would look to the legislative history of the law, what was said in all of those House and Senate floor speeches, what was said in those committee reports. Scalia stood athwart all of that. Scalia felt that a judge or justice who's honest will bind himself or herself to the original meaning of the Constitution or any given law enacted since then, that it was widely understood to carry at the time of enactment. Otherwise, it's basically a vehicle for latter-day judges to graft their policy preferences onto existing legal texts. So Scalia was a champion of, on and off the bench. He was a tireless evangelist, using his wit, his humor, his affability, his dazzling literary genius to advocate on behalf of what he called originalism. The original meaning of the law is what should govern judges today. How do you find the original meaning of a law? The text. And as I like to say, he used textualism as the metal detector to find the original meaning. What if the text was ambiguous, as it often is? Then Scalia had another tool, which was historical tradition. So you take something like abortion. When abortion was codified as a constitutional right by the Supreme Court in Roe versus Wade in 1973, it was not enumerated as a right anywhere in the Constitution. At a minimum, Scalia felt at least such a practice should have a strong historical consensus or long, continuous historical practice that sanctified it. But in fact, for abortion, unenumerated in the Constitution, it was quite the opposite. All of the states had had fairly restrictive laws against abortion for most of our history. In 1978, Professor Scalia went on PBS on one of those debate programs, and he defined Roe v. Wade as the embodiment of the imperial judiciary. And so this has had a profound effect on the law today. By the time he died, this was no longer a lonely position. No less a figure than Justice Elena Kagan had pronounced, and she was an appointee of President Obama, that as a result of this kind of counter-revolution in the law that Scalia ushered in, quote, "We are all originalists now." And as I say, this affects every American alive today, Mark.
I was really struck when you wrote about his views of Brennan and Brennan's views of him. Do you want to expand on that?
Yes. Sure. So Justice William Brennan had been appointed in 1956, I think, by President Eisenhower, a Republican. But Brennan drifted leftward over the course of his time on the Supreme Court.
And by the way, before Eisenhower left, he said it was the damn worst decision he ever made. Anyway, go ahead.
I think he was talking about Earl Warren with that specific quote. But,
actually, you're right.
But yeah, Eisenhower's appointees didn't turn out as planned. And by the time Scalia comes to the court in 1986, and this new book, Scalia, Supreme Court Years, 1986 to 2001, covers the first half of Scalia's momentous nearly 30 terms on the Supreme Court. When Scalia gets there in 1986, Justice Brennan was the senior most justice on the court. He'd been there the longest, and he'd become known as the playmaker of the Warren Court. He was the epitome of the living constitutionalist. Brennan liked to wiggle his 5 fingers at Scalia and say, "You know what this means, Nino? All I need are 5 votes." And like a politician, Brennan was quite happy to trade a liberty here or a clause there to secure that 5th vote. Scalia considered himself bound by the text, so he had nothing to trade. But he always admired Justice Brennan. And late into the 21st century, Scalia could be seen on the Charlie Rose show or what have you, proclaiming that Bill Brennan was the single most influential justice of the 20th century. In my research for this book, I dug through Justice Brennan's papers at the Library of Congress. And there are all these notes that Scalia keeps sending him, previously unpublished, published here for the first time, inviting Brennan to parties, congratulating Brennan on his 30th anniversary as a justice. And
stop right Brennan, there. I'm going to carry over the break. I have to take a hard break. This is fascinating. All right. So you got all these notes. What are in the notes? That's what we're going to find out when we come back. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
The book, which I want you to get, you're going to love it. It's about one of our heroes, Antonin Scalia, is Scalia, Supreme Court Years 1986 to 2001. And James is telling us, it's very intriguing, what he dug up about these notes. Remind us again and take us to that.
We're talking about the relationship between Justice Scalia and the justice he admired most, who was a liberal, who was a sort of a living constitutionalist judge who believed that a judge should have the right to just read whatever they want into the text of the Constitution or any law enacted since then. And my research in the Library of Congress and the papers of Justice Brennan showed that Scalia was constantly writing to him and inviting him to parties and congratulating on his 30th anniversary on the court and expressing this outsized admiration. But Brennan keeps responding fairly bloodlessly. I found a reporter for the Wall Street Journal who covered the court for 5 terms back then and who had off-the-record access in chambers to all of the justices. His name was Paul Barrett. He now teaches at NYU. And he told me in our interview that Justice Brennan, contrary to what Scalia believed, he said that Brennan was an uncle to me. He would never steer me wrong. And Scalia's children and his clerks and his most ardent defenders all extolled to me the relationship with Bill Brennan as another example of Scalia's great capacity, along with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, for example, for what William F. Buckley Jr. used to call the trans-ideological friendship. In fact, Paul Barrett told me that in chambers, privately, Justice Brennan expressed to him very negative views about Justice Scalia. He felt that Scalia was a force on the court and in the shaping of American law that was destructive. And then I was able to present Paul Barrett with an exchange of letters between Barrett himself and Justice Brennan that took place in 1992, tucked away in the Library of Congress, never before published until now, until this book, where Brennan is now off the court for 2 years and retired, and they've had lunch. And Paul Barrett in 1992, Scalia's 6th term on the court, wrote a very unflattering profile of him for the Wall Street Journal called The Loner. And Justice Brennan asked Paul Barrett, please send me the Scalia article. And he does. This was back before the internet, and you can see the actual article from the Wall Street Journal is clipped out with the scissors and photocopied old school style. And then there is a response from Justice Brennan in the Library of Congress, never before published, July 21, 1992, where the retired Justice Brennan, Scalia's hero, and someone he regarded as an uncle, writes to Paul Barrett, thank you for sending me the Scalia article. It says what so many think. And so Scalia's clerks and family and defenders could all be forgiven for telling me and extolling the warmth of the relationship between the two men, because the truth of the relationship was artfully concealed by Brennan from Scalia himself.
That's awful. Really, really awful. And during the course of his life before he died, what did he think of Brennan? Do you know?
He went to his grave believing that that Brennan had shared a warm relationship, that Brennan had been like an uncle to him. And, you know, what brings to mind for me is a famous exchange between Dr. Zbigniew Brzezinski, perhaps best known today as the father of Mika Brzezinski, but he was President Carter's White House National Security Advisor. By training, he had been a Kremlinologist. And long before he joined the Carter White House, a hostile interviewer asked Dr. Brzezinski, how did you fail to predict the ouster of the Soviet premier, Nikita Khrushchev? And the answer from Brzezinski echoes throughout history. He said, how can you fault me for failing to predict the ouster of Khrushchev when Khrushchev himself failed to predict the ouster of Khrushchev? So Scalia never knew the truth of his real relationship with Bill Brennan, and I think it's one of the major revelations of this book.
It is. That's a big deal. And you have a chapter there on Harry Blackmun, the infamous Harry Blackmun, who relied very heavily on his clerks. I remember when I was an intern for the Chief Justice, Berger at the time, and it was pretty well known that, I'll be as polite as I can, that Blackmun was the least of the most intelligent of the justices, if you get my drift. He wasn't that bright.
So, Justice Blackmun was appointed by President Nixon. Yep. And as with Eisenhower's appointees, he drifted far leftward. And in fact, Blackmun was the author of Roe versus Wade, and also an affirmative action decision known as Backey. And Scalia, as a professor, had been extremely critical of Blackmun's writings. So when Scalia comes to the court in 1986, Blackmun takes a very jaundiced view of him and, in fact, is gunning for him. And how do we know that? Because, again, my research in the Blackmun papers showed that when Scalia's clerks would circulate to the other chambers these memos that are called cert pool memos. You know, the Supreme Court receives something like 15,000 applications a year for people for their cases to be heard. They only accept about 100 or 125 a year. It falls to the clerks to wade through them and decide which ones might be worthy, cert worthy as they call it. So these cert pool memos get circulated amongst the clerks, and when Blackmun's chambers would get these memos from Scalia's clerks, and we're talking about clerks who went on to very accomplished positions. One of them, for example, would be Chris Landau, who today is the Deputy U.S. Secretary of State under Marco Rubio. Blackmun's clerks were pointing at Landau's name and the names of other Scalia clerks and writing next to them as though it were some kind of scarlet letter, Federalist, denoting their membership in the Federalist Society, which Scalia had helped found, a network of conservative law students and lawyers that is now one of the most powerful legal groups in the world. And not only would they say Federalist, they would say things about the individual clerks like, this clerk is overzealously evil, a fascist. And far from discouraging all this, Blackmun would chime in and encourage this behavior with his little snide comments of his own on these pages. And it went on for years, and it encompassed clerks from other chambers, such as Justice O'Connor's chambers. John Manning, who went on to be a very prestigious professor at the Harvard Law School, was thusly designated. And it was kind of a smear campaign that was carried out in private. And again, I don't think Scalia ever knew about it. This book, Scalia's Supreme Court Years, reveals all this for the first time.
Boy, oh boy. So there is a lot of cattiness, gossip, sort of backstabbing that takes place on the court, isn't there?
It's been described as 9 scorpions in a bottle. The justices themselves, and Scalia was like this, would say publicly that everything was hunky-dory and we're all cordial and so forth. But Scalia, as I mentioned, with his tireless campaign on and off the bench on behalf of originalism and textualism as the only honest way for a judge to do his work. And by the way, those methods produced outcomes in cases that Scalia often himself personally found abhorrent. And that's how you knew you're dealing with an honest judge. As a result of that campaign, a lot of the justices didn't like being called to task. He had a great relationship with Clarence Thomas. We spent a lot of time in the book on this subject, on Clarence Thomas's singular ordeal to get to the court. And the one outstretched hand he found when he got there belonged to Nino Scalia. And the two of them would sneak cigarettes in the lawyer's lounge at the court. They would lose their marshal teams and go together alone to go attend mass nearby the court. And they had a great relationship. But you take someone like Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman on the court, and who was the justice most recently appointed before Scalia got there, both appointees of Ronald Reagan. There's a photograph in this book that's never been published before, which I love, given to me by the Scalia family. And it shows, it's taken at the court in one of those dark oak paneled rooms, Halloween 1986. So Scalia's only been on the court about 3 weeks. And he's in a suit and tie, and Sandra Day O'Connor's standing next to him, and she's professionally dressed in a jacket and a blouse and a skirt, what have you. He's wearing a red bulbous nose on his nose, like a clown nose. And she's wearing one of those monstrous Groucho Marx nose and glasses and mustache and furry eyebrow thingies. And they're both smiling. And as I say in the caption, it only went downhill from there, because Scalia felt that Sandra Day O'Connor wanted very much to be, as she was, the swing justice, the justice who gets to provide the fifth vote that decides the case. And the way she did that was by applying incremental rules to each case. Well, there were 5 factors here that were present, 3 that weren't. So based on that, we can rule this way and wait for the next case, where there are 2 factors present and 6 not. The joke that originalists make about this is, how did the 10 Commandments case go? Fine, they upheld 5 and they struck down 5. Scalia considered that sloppy. And not the proper role of a judge. The judge should be providing bright line rulings for lower courts to follow so that we don't have endless litigation. And he called her out on it. And in one of his opinions, he said that Sandra Day O'Connor's writings, specifically on abortion, quote, cannot be taken seriously. This opened up a major rupture between them that lasted the rest of their lives together. And I have a lot of unpublished anecdotes from different people who were able to observe the two of them in settings together where they really didn't like each other.
This is a fantastic book, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to love it. Scalia, Supreme Court Years 1986 to 2001. You can get it on Amazon right now. Mr. Producer, put it on all of our platforms, please. And any bookstore. You hang out at a bookstore like I do often, Barnes & Noble and so forth. You can get this book, and I recommend it. James Rosen is a great journalist. Look at all the research he did. He's telling us things I didn't know, nobody knew. And that's really compelling. Congratulations, James. It's really a great book. You put a lot of work into it, and it's telling.
Thank you, Mark, and you're so kind to have me on.
No, it's my pleasure. You take care of yourself. Folks, I really encourage you to grab this. It's spellbinding. It really is. It's intriguing. And it happens to be objectively true. So that's James Rosen. You know him. And the book is Scalia, Supreme Court Years 1986 to 2001. You can get it on Amazon.com right now. You don't have to be a lawyer. If you are, you're going to love it. And if you're not, you're going to love it. So either way, and again, at any major bookstore. Any major bookstore. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, this is breaking. The Department of Homeland Security has confirmed that the Michigan synagogue attacker has been identified as Ayam Mohammed Ghazali, a Lebanese national who first entered the United States in 2011 on an IR-1 immigration visa as the spouse of a U.S. citizen. He later became a naturalized U.S. citizen in 2016 under the Obama regime. So that sounds like two Islamists to me, Mr. Producer. Two Islamists today. Now, obviously, there are others who do horrific things as well. But we're talking about recently naturalized citizens, aren't we? Yes, we are. These aren't exactly the best that the world has to offer us. That used to be a test, too. Apparently not anymore. Allegiance to the United States. Apparently not anymore. We have no standards for people coming into the country, except for those who are trying to come in legally. But others, no. Apparently not. Although these, at least one of them tried to come in legally, but somehow managed to get through. I wonder how good her... What is it? A resident of Dearborn, Michigan, or as I've been calling it, Dearbornistan, where they have a radical mayor, radical imams, a radical professor at the Henry Ford College there, and many others. You know, a lot of hosts have been very timid about this, about calling it out. I've been calling it out now for years, year after year after year. I'm just telling the truth. I've explained the history. I've explained the ideology. I've explained who some of the so-called scholars are. I play the clips. None of this is a concoction that's all accurate. All of it. And these individuals who are podcasters, self-anointed influencers, who say the most hateful and outrageous things out there, you better believe that they are encouraging violence, or they wouldn't say the things that they're saying. You better believe they're encouraging violence. That's right, I said it. That's right, I said it. There's a lot of people out there, nuts, and ideologues. And you throw gasoline on that fire and you get more fire. You better believe that they have some responsibility for this. And they're going to keep at it. They're not going to stop. They're going to be offended that you dare point a finger at them and call them out for what they are. Let's stop playing games. We have to be honest if we're going to save this country. That's the truth. Every day with the Jew hatred, every day with the Israel hatred, every day attacking Jews, prominent and not prominent, and then attacking Christians. Every damn day, on and on and on. So, of course, when you have Islamists, of course, when you have homegrown neo-fascists and neo-Nazis and Marxists, this is what you're going to get. And they're going to attack people who defend and represent our country as well, like going into a classroom, an ROTC classroom, and killing the instructor, shooting two others, and trying to kill everybody else. The same ideology. You better believe that those who are spreading poison At this point, they spread it, and they intend to spread it, and they intend certain outcomes. And they intend certain outcomes. We've seen their ilk before, 100 years ago, 500 years ago. It's incredible. It's incredible what the next generation is going to write about, the tolerance for this stuff. Well, thanks for listening, folks. It's always an honor for me to do this, and a blessing as well, to have this national town hall meeting on radio. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, the men and women in Persia. And you, the American people, red-blooded Americans, God bless each and every one of you. And I'll see you tomorrow.